unexpected ways, what choices do you make to keep you on the path rather than falling out of the game? That's what we're going to be exploring here today on Outliers Edge Live. Thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey. I'm Niyama Ashong, the founder of Outliers Edge, and today we're going to have an Outliers Edge roundtable with Kim Harms. Kim, thank you so much for making the time for this conversation. Thank you for showing up in such a powerful way. And really, thank you for answering the Outlier call. It's a pleasure to be in space with you.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, Kim, we like to start every conversation here with like acknowledging the game that each of us are playing. So, would you mind letting us know more about you and the game you're currently playing?
Well, I'm currently playing the game of life because I'm 70 years old, and there's an end. I'm playing the end game. I'm living in the end part of my life, and I'm looking back. I had quite a career. I was a dentist. I was the first woman president of the Minnesota Dental Association. I was a national spokesperson for the American Dental Association. I had a great resume, and what I found was that resume doesn't really mean a lot when you're 70 years old after you retire. I also have lived through quite a few losses in my life. And as you get older, I think it's important to remember that either you lose people you love or you lose something that you love. Or you die young, one or the other. I mean, because you can't do both. So because I'm older, I have had a lot of losses. I lost a mother and son to suicide. I lost my husband to a broken heart. I lost my job in dentistry after 30 years because I was born with my mother took thalidomide, so I'm missing some fingers on one hand, but became a dentist anyway because my husband was really cute and he wanted to go to dental school. But I had a nice long 30-year practice. And then after 30 years, I had nerve damage in my good hand and had to stop immediately. And I was working full-time one day, went to Mayo Clinic. They said, "You're done." And so my identity as a mother, my identity as a daughter, my identity as a wife, and my identity as a professional all went up in smoke very quickly. And I had to learn to regroup and to re-identify and to get through whatever phase in life you have. And I'm a person of faith, and I had to realize God wasn't done with me yet. So what's the plan? What do I do now? And so I had to reinvent myself, especially after my husband died. I became a widow, and I realized, how difficult grief is. I've been in that grief pit many, many times for many years, and I've learned a lot coming out of it. So what I do now, my game now, is to help people rebuild their lives. I think life is going to tear you down. It just is, and we don't need fewer broken people. We need more rebuilt ones, and I try to help rebuild people. So after I couldn't practice dentistry anymore, I became an author. I've written several books. One is called "Are You Ready? How to Build a Legacy to Die For," which talks about building your legacy for your children. It's not money. It's an emotional legacy. Help them become resilient. I talk about death. I'm a death doula. We have to face our death. What do you believe is going to happen? That affects a lot of things in your life. And I wrote part of it about what things you need to do as an adult to make sure that when you do go, your kids aren't left in a mess. I mean, we need to have your will developed. You need to get rid of your stuff, which is hard. And you have to prepare so those kids you love. I have 2 surviving daughters and 6 amazing grandkids. And so when I go, they're going to have everything in one little book. Open up the book, everything's there. They're not going to have to search my house and go through all my drawers and try to find things. So basically, live your life with the end in mind and give as much as you can, love as much as you can, and be ready when you go, not to leave a mess so your kids are fighting. Because the majority of families, over 50% of families, are involved in conflict when someone they love dies. And I'm making sure I'm not in that percentage. So I try to help people, face their future, deal with their past, face their future, and live a life full of love and joy, because you still can no matter what happened to you in life.
So, Kim, firstly, it's like I appreciate you. I'm sorry for the path that you had to go through to get to this place, here. But I appreciate you overall. And there's a number of different things that are flowing for me, even as I hear you, like, let us know about this game. The one that I'm going to start with is the element of rebuilding. There's something about that really captured me, and I think that there were 2 parts of this. So what I hear about you is that you've had to reinvent, you had to rebuild, you've chosen resiliency several times over. over and over and over again. And I think I want to just slow down a little to see like when you talk about rebuild, because you also talk about like facing the future. So like I want to kind of get a sense like when you think about like rebuilding, what does that mean to you? And like that way we can all be on the same page.
Sure. Well, when we suffer a loss, no matter what that loss is, in my case, it was loss of son, husband, mother, but suicide absolutely intensifies that loss, makes it more difficult to survive. Lost my job. When you suffer a loss, no matter what it is, your identity also changes. So
Mm,
I was no longer a mother of a son. I had my only son died. I was and that was probably that was a hard, not probably that was the hardest ever because that's you're in the wrong when you lose a child. That's not how your life is supposed to work. And he was this brilliant, wonderful, amazing kid at Columbia University, National Merit Scholar, and his girlfriend broke up with him. Everything was going his way. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he was gone in 45 minutes. Very impulsive. He was a jazz pianist, so he played in the jazz band at Columbia too. But he was very impulsive, and that's when the concept of resilience and teaching resilience really came to me because I've suffered greatly. I can't even explain to you how much suffering is involved when you lose a child. It took many, many years. It was 15 years ago, so I'm easier to talk about today. But you have to take a look at your life and realize I had that when you have a loss, your identity changes and you have to figure out who you are now. What's
mm,
in store for you now? And I have to say, I had the one quick little story. One of the best things that ever happened to me after I lost my son, because I could have stayed in that pit forever. I was down in that pit. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't, I gave up all my dental stuff. I just didn't think I would ever have a moment of joy again in my life. It was a horrible time. And I was coming out of my office one time, and my husband's cousin came up to me, and he was angry. And he was pointing his finger at me and shaking his finger at me. He said he had lost his brother at about the same time we lost Eric. We had two remaining daughters. So he came up to me, shaking his finger in my face, and he said, "Don't you dare let your remaining children feel that they're not enough. Don't you do that to them." And it just hit me like a lightning bolt when I realized what he was saying. And that is, I had two remaining children. I had a husband. He had just had a liver transplant, by the way. So there's a lot of other stuff going on there. Um, and I realized that I could stay in the pit. I could be the victim. I could be at the bottom of the pit. I could just think life is horrible and be miserable the rest of my life. Or I could fight, kick, scream, and claw my way out of it, which is what it takes. It doesn't happen naturally because I had two daughters and a husband that needed me. And because of what he did, because of his challenge to me, it was one of the most beautiful gifts I ever had. Because that's the moment I decided I was going to fight. I was going to fight the pit. I was going to fight my way out. And I look at people who have suffered horrible losses, and I just want to encourage them to fight the pit, fight victimhood, be a survivor, not a victim, and fight your way out because you can find joy again no matter what happens to you. And I mentioned a little bit, I have the best grief counselors in the world, Rwanda and genocide survivors. So let me tell you about, rebuilding a life. How do you do that? Um, but it's so important to fight. It's so important to set that as a goal. It's so important not to succumb to the pit, not to succumb to the grief, not to succumb to being miserable. You have the ability to fight. You have the ability to find joy. Doesn't happen easily. It might take years, but it's worth the battle. It's worth the fight. And if I can just get that message out to as many people as possible before I go, which I'm 70, so not too long, I'll be a happy camper.
So I got caught in the mute trap right there. But there's something here where it's like one the seven there's still a lot left to go. So like and I see you like doing the work there. There's a there's a couple different things that came up for me as you were saying. There's a lot like I'm allowed like as we're talking, I want my heart to feel. And I think Kim, that is also part of your intention, right? This is not an intellectual exercise here, right? Because like what I heard from you is like it's we are feeling, and someone came in and they broke something, they broke a pattern in there, and I like what I appreciate in that there was that it wasn't it was what you needed at that time to bring you through. And what was going on through my mind was like even as you were saying it, like you had the finger waving, you saw your whole face change. Like he was like, no, no,
Right.
that like do not go down this path. And I think about this outliers as like a couple different things. One, like what are the things right now what touches you, what moves you, what gets you to change, right? Like spend some time right now just taking a quick inventory for yourself and like check in and be like, what were some of the moments, the unexpected moments where I something needed to shift. The other thing that I really appreciate was just that like he brought whatever was needed, whatever was full in that moment. I'm someone who I grew up as a black man in America. I tend to stay away from like anger, right? Joy feels like good, feels safe. Anger feels dangerous because I'm like I don't know how other people are going to respond to it, and so in hearing that, I hear that I'm like, oh, this is an invitation to also bring to bring all the tools of who you are or what you have to the table, whether it's to fight for yourself or to fight for someone else, and to grasp into that there. And it's probably not one of the things that you would have thought that I would have gone down after hearing all that in there, but like it's the component of like I don't know. I feel like there's a like for me there's a risk in that emotion in particular, but I think there's a risk in like doing what does it take, doing whatever it takes to be there. What are your thoughts on that, Kim, if anything at all, or what are you feeling if not thoughts?
Well, I really wouldn't recommend you come up to a grieving widow waving your finger. It normally doesn't work. That's usually not a
Mm,
good thing. But in that case, I think there's like a sacred place where you can
mm,
say things. And this was within a family. His mother had recently died, and he didn't even
mm,
go to the funeral. I mean, they basically just cut off ties with everyone. So I knew that story, and he was a
mm,
member of the family. So I knew that it was this kind of a safe place. So I think that
mm.
um, I just think it was God's timing myself because it doesn't make
Yeah.
much sense. That would be a good thing to do. But I
Yep.
think that maybe helping people in a much more gentle way, if you can, helping
Yeah.
people understand that we can fall into the trap of victimhood. We can
Mm,
fall into the trap of why me? Why me? Why me? Why, enough, enough, enough. I've been through a lot before in my life. Why me? And you can fall into that, but I think that we need to learn, first of all, that we are, sacred beings. We are enough by ourselves. We don't have to,
mm,
there's we feel kind of we have to have, especially as a widow now, I felt in order to be happy, I had my husband of 44 years and now I don't. I'm by myself. We have to learn to respect ourselves as we are, but just understand that sometimes when people are grieving, that initial phase, and luckily it wasn't at the funeral. I think if he said that at the funeral, it
yeah.
would have been a different story. It was a couple of weeks
Yeah.
later.
Mm,
But sometimes we need to help people move forward and
mm,
probably in a much more gentle way. For me, what I do, I work with widows now.
mm,
I coach widows. I'm a grief counselor too, and I help people understand that um, your husband's gone, but you're not. You're still here. And what can you do? What can look at your life now and find what can you do now to build your life from this moment on? Look forward into what you can do because you're still a human being. You still have potential. You still have things you can do. What is it that you can do starting now? Who can you help starting now? And many times when you've been through loss, one of the best things you can do is help other people get through the loss because
mm,
that when you're helping other people, you're giving out that love or that the emotions, but you know what, you get it back because they're grateful. And so you helping other people is one of the best things you can do to lift your own spirits up, to help you get out of the pit. One of the best things you can do is help other people out of the pit. And I think that we, as a group and as a culture, need to really learn to be resilient, and the fact that when things go wrong, when things go badly, when you have a catastrophic loss, that you're going to suffer for a while. You have to work through that grief. So there's no easy steps out of it. I used to think especially after my son died, I thought, well, maybe I could just go to sleep for 20 years, like Rip Van Winkle, and you wake up and everything will be fine. Well, it wouldn't, because you have to go through the grief. You have to work through it and get some help. Get some help for the grief. Don't give in to the grief. Get help for the grief with the goal of getting to that point where you can live in the present and have joy again. Knowing that's a goal. I think the problem many times is people give up on that goal. They think it's not possible. I'm going to be in this pit forever and my life is going to be miserable. And we all know people that have not been able to climb out and who have stayed in the pit for the rest of their lives. I mean, I know people, especially working with widows, who once their husband was gone, they just, they couldn't function anymore. Or once their wife was gone or their child was gone, when they had a catastrophic loss, they were never able to rebuild their lives again. And so sometimes it's not possible. It's kind of like if you were going to be a trainer and have me working out. I'm not real good at that, so I'd be kind of a failure at that part of it, but I'm good in the emotional part. So think about building up your brain, just like building up your body. Not everyone's going to be able to do it, but it sure is a great thing to try. Set a goal and know it's possible, and know it's work, and know that you can't just, if you give into it, you're going to be there forever. So I'm just trying to help people, encourage people not to give into the grief, not to give into the pit, to fight it, to battle it, to work your way out, and not give into victimhood. Consider yourself a survivor, not a victim. I think those are two different things that we need people with. And it affects their happiness. It's not it affects their happiness when you do that. The most miserable people are the ones in the pit.
So this makes me think of a number of different things. I've heard people talk about like hope and despair, and like with despair just being the absence of hope, right? And like to the point of and what I'm hearing from you is like, it's like no, like maintain the hope. It's not like, and I like maintain that like the possibility of joy. Like it may not be here right now, but like keep that going throughout. Otherwise, you'll fall into the pit of despair, right? And it's just like, and you're just in the pit. You talked about something. I think you're like, you talk about like things that are unimaginable, like you're like unimaginable catastrophic loss. And I'm like, as you're sitting here, I'm like, oh yeah, like there's two parts. One of them is like I can't imagine it, and the other one's like, oh, I don't want to, because I've I'm like thinking about that, right? But at the same time, I'm also recognizing how much you're like preparing us right now for like there's two elements. One, planting seeds and planting seeds to so that you can be prepared in advance, and then also being able to recognize like if this is something that you're in the midst of right now, how we can come and lift ourselves off. Kim, I'm going to ask you a question a bit, but Outliers, I'm going to come to you right now. Like I think it'd be great if you can take some time right now. If you know anyone that's in the pit right now that you think would really benefit from this, please share this link, share this conversation with them. Like just be one of those people that can gently remind them or gently help them see a path, even out of that. There's just work that we're doing that's really important. And I think Kim clearly you know what it's like to walk alongside someone as they're in that space, And so, talking about that there, Alex, we can do that. I mean, the absolute world to me. Talking about that there, Kim, you there's kind of two things. I think what I'm interested in and curious about is like you talked about all the different experiences that you had and all the times you had to go through loss and grief. And I'll come back to the identity change in a bit too. So we'll put that out there. But I'm curious, like when I hear it, I'm like, oh, your experience, Kim. You've had like, does it get any easier? Like is the concept of like preparing and all that afterwards, like not like does it get any easier to become resilient, to bounce back afterwards? Or is it kind of like one of those things where it's like, no, it always sucks. Like it's like I don't know. Can you speak to that a little bit here? I just want to just kind of make sure that I'm thinking about it properly too.
Well, to a degree, it always sucks. I have to say that. But however, expect that it's going to suck. I think that's the thing. We have to have expectations of what life is about. And I think that, for instance, I'm a person of faith. So I have a belief that there's more to life than what we just have here. That's what I hold on to probably more than anything. So I think looking at yourself beyond the current situation is very, very important. I will say that having suffered, I suffered the loss of my mother first and my son. My son was the worst because it was completely unexpected. He was on top of the world and he was gone. No, it came completely out of the blue. And it was a suicide. So there's so many things involved in your head when that happens. From that suffering from my son, which was, the worst I could even imagine, came a lot of things for me. I learned a lot. I went to Rwanda. I talked to we have 70 libraries in Rwanda, and I have a lot of friends there that went through that catastrophic loss, the catastrophic genocide, when they didn't just lose a son or a husband, they lost their entire families and everything they had, and many times they were raped, and maybe they had children from the rape. I mean, it was things that you couldn't even imagine here that they went through. And I found them, I think, was it 16 years, I think, after the genocide was when I went there. And the people that had committed it were still in jail. Yet there was a joy in these women. And when they found out that I was there because I lost a son, and I was bringing libraries there because I lost a son, I was like part of the group. They surrounded me with love. They were dancing, they were smiling, they were singing. And I thought, I was still in that part where, how can you dance? How can you sing? How can you even live a minute? And they taught me that you can, but it takes forgiveness. How can you forgive a genocide? How do you do that? But they learn to do that, and they learn that by doing that, by taking on, by fighting the grief, by understanding that they had to forgive and reconcile and do all these very difficult things because they wanted their children to grow up in an environment that was missing the elements that caused the genocide in the first place. And they built if you, I would encourage anyone there to go look up Rwanda and how they have um, uh, become this beautiful, safe, wonderful country after being completely torn apart. And I think, to me, it reminds me of me when I lost my son. I was completely torn apart. I couldn't function. And yet, by working hard and by keeping the end in mind, keeping the future in mind, looking past today, looking at me, I had my children, I had my husband, that I needed to be strong. I needed to function for them. That helped me move myself out. I think finding something in the future as a goal can help you climb that way out of that pit, to help you climb. If it's a faith, if it's a family, if it's whatever it is for you, find that goal and fight your way towards it. And in the Rwandans' case, they built a beautiful country, very safe, beautiful country. After, I think it's about 30 years now, unbelievable what they built, because they chose to do that, to do the work required.
When I hear that, it takes me to uh, the goal element of it. Takes me to like less of like an external thing, but it feels like there's like it feels like a mission, like something to fight for, like someone to fight for. Actually, is really what I'm hearing. Like when I think about the story um when the person came waving the finger and they're like fight for your daughters. When I hear you talk about the mothers in Rwanda, they're like, we're fighting for our children.
Yes.
And as a result of fighting for them, now have this goal that has shown up. But it's like it's not about the externality. Like it's rooted in something really, really, really real. That almost feels like there's a reason to transcend. There's a reason to accomplish that goal there. I don't want to speak out of turn. I want to speak out of anything here. Like from your experience, or how does that land? How does that? Yeah, tell me about that. Calibrate, please.
Yes, absolutely. I had two daughters and a husband who I was
Mhm.
fighting for. That was my goal. But here's the thing too, you're fighting for yourself, because
Mm.
living in a pit it's a horrible place to live. It's horrible. And I was like that. I was going to live there because I felt, hey, every time I get out, something else happens and I get pushed back down again. What's the point, right? So I was sucking up mud trying to breathe down there. It's a horrible place to live. Living in joy is a beautiful place to live, because you're you're able not only to have a joyful life yourself, but you're able to spread it and pass it on to other people and help other people find it themselves. But searching and fighting for your own joy is absolutely worth it. Even if you have nobody else in your life, if you're all alone, like many of those Rwandan genocide survivors, many of them were left all by themselves, yet they fought for joy. And I think that you're worth it. And I think sometimes we think maybe we're not. You are worth it. You are worth the fight. And you can either choose to, like, not fight, or fight. And really, fighting gives you a goal. Fighting gives you something to live for. There's even um, in getting involved in that battle
Mhm.
is a good thing. It's a positive thing. So I just, my biggest message is don't succumb to the pit. Get out of there because it's so much
You
better
know,
life outside.
there's two sides of it though. I feel like Kim, the I don't hear you saying just subsist.
Right.
Get out of the pit and then just barely survive. What I'm like, there's an element. You keep talking about the goal, you keep saying fighting for face your future, right? Like there's some element here of like um it's odd to me. It's my brain. I read comic books and things like that. But there's a comic that talks about it's like the best possible future is no longer possible, but the third best possible future still is. You know, and there's something in what I feel like you're saying, that it's not just hey, we're gonna let's just work to heal you so that you can get through. You're actually saying you create leaders and people who are leading and finding joy once again with them, and you what I hear underneath this is let's find a new purpose for your life right here, and because who you were and the way that life was, that can never come back. That identity, that's gone, right? And so now let's go find a new mission, a new purpose, a new thing to fight for, a new goal to achieve, that might go beyond you. But I want to get your thoughts on this here, or your feelings on it. But I do feel like there's a big distinction between I don't know. I don't think that your full message is just don't be in the pit. I think, and I don't even think it's just resiliency, where it's just get back to where you are. I feel that you're reforging, you're recreating in beyond that. What do you get from that, Kim?
You hit the nail on the head. Now, when my husband was alive, when my child was alive, we had all kinds of plans. He was doing so well, and you think about your future with, he was going to be the one with grandkids because the other kids weren't going to have any. You had this whole idea in your head of what your
Mm,
future was going to be like. Well, that went by the wayside. And then when my husband, after he died, when my husband, who had had liver cancer right before that, we were struggling with that. He was sick for a long time. But we had planned on retiring. We had this little lake home. We live in Minnesota, so we had a little lake home in Minnesota. We're going to retire up there, and we had we put everything, all of our money and everything into getting that all ready to go. And then he died, and
mhm,
the kids, it was too far north for the kids to come, and it wasn't a place for me. I didn't want to be there by myself, especially when I had grandkids down here. So that plan died, and part of the plan was I was going to still practice dentistry part time to kind of afford everything. So that plan died. So every single plan we had for our future kicked the bucket. It died. They're all gone. They're all gone. So I had to reinvent myself. Now here's the interesting thing. I did write a little bit in dentistry. I wrote some professional articles, but I wasn't a writer. I never considered myself a writer or a speaker. I did do some speaking, but not that much. But when my husband died, and I started looking at, well, what do I do now? When I was 64 at the time. What do I do now at 64 years old? Uh, and I had started researching. What do I do now? First of all, you got to prepare. This is the last part of your life. You find yourself in that dark valley between menopause and death. Like, what do I do? What the heck? What do I do now?
mm,
And so I realized that there's a lot of things we need to learn. So as I was learning them, I started writing them down. I said, well, other people need to know this too. So I started writing, and so I've written. I think I've written 6 books now. On different. I'm in the process of, I think, my sixth one right now. I'm writing books. They're faith-based books for widows, because I feel that widows. I had a widows group that kind of came, and just 2 days after my husband died, one of my friends called and said, you got to join this group. And they were my lifeline, because when you go through difficult times, there are other people that go through those difficult times too. And nobody understands a widow like another widow. If you've been through it
mhm,
yourself, you have that credibility. So I was helped by my friend, and now I'm helping other widows, because I'm writing books, I'm writing devotionals, I'm writing year-long devotionals for widows. I'm helping other widows get through their tough time, and then hopefully when I'm gone, they'll help other widows or whatever they're going through, whatever process they're going through. They're helping other people get through it as well. So for me, I am doing things completely different than I ever did before. And it's important to know that you can reinvent yourself so much better, much more easily now because so many courses are online. You don't have to travel to do things. I'm a speaker, so I speak all over the country and I just fly into places and I have my GPS and I can go wherever I want to go and I can find myself wherever I am. Life is so much easier to reinvent. It's so much easier to reinvent yourself right now than it was 20, 30 years ago when it was more difficult to travel, more difficult to find your way around. So I speak all over. I have fun doing that. I love doing that. I'm writing these books. I love the books. I love writing. And I feel that I'm helpful and I'm useful in doing that. I'm also part of the lives of my 6 grandchildren. That's another part of my life. So my goal right now is to be out there helping my grandchildren and helping other widows and other people who are struggling with this fourth quarter of life. And I found that that's very rewarding. And you don't have to go, I'm a little bit of an overachiever. You know, we've got the 70 libraries and all this stuff. You don't have to do all that. But within your groups, within your own community, there are places in your church that you can help out. There are places to volunteer. If you don't have a church, you can volunteer, places. You can get out there and be present and be helpful to society as a whole. And if you're doing that, that's a wonderful thing to do. That's enough. There's so many things you can do. You just have to look out there and be useful and helpful. I find out that for me, that's what works.
I love this year. The Kim, so what's going on through the back of my mind right now is like,
Good.
okay,
I'll answer.
for all right, cool. So you were talking about like the 70 libraries, the books that you're writing, like speaking all over the world while also being there as a grandparent for your 6 grandchildren. And you said like you're a bit of an overachiever, and then you brought up the other version of it, which I like, right? The thing is that like the people who watch this, like we like overachieving is our water, right? We're fish to water of that, right? So can you, yeah, so I guess what I'm saying here is like, what would you say if you didn't have to like, if you didn't have to like bring it down to make it like virtual, like for those people who are used to I can't even think about that, like as I'm forming the question, I'm thinking about this, I'm like, wow, if you're used to being out in the world and you enter into the pit, right? Like even going back to like a level of normalcy is like it's different, like I see that you create in the world. So if you had to talk to anyone who is also a high achiever and wanted to just keep growing, like what would you say to them?
Go for it. We living boldly. I think as we age, especially I'm a baby boy again, 70, and our life expectancy is in the 70s. So I'm looking like, oh my goodness, what things are going to happen to us. I'm starting to age. Things are a little creakier than they used to be, and I got a new hip. We have to go through these difficult things in life as we get older, and we're lucky to go through them because the other option is that you die early, right? So if you live long enough, you're going to go through these times. And I my word to them is forget retirement. I mean, you can retire from the job that you have now and have, but forget this idea of just sitting back and twiddling your thumbs. We're finding out now that people get bored after a while. So I would say just go for it as long as you can. And that's what I tell my children. I'm traveling as much as I can with my kids now. I'm doing as much as I can now because I still can. 5 or 6 years, I might not be able to. And I think sometimes we put limitations on ourselves. When you get older, sometimes a word stick in your head, right? So a lot of us, if you're speakers, a lot of you say, "Oh, I can't speak anymore. The words get stuck in my head." Well, now if I'm giving a talk to somebody and a word gets stuck in my head, I say, "Darn it, that word is stuck. What is it?" And I get audience participation, so I turn it into a good thing. So just go for it and keep going. You're never going to be healthier than you are right now. So
Mhm.
go for it right now. Keep on moving. And then when you can't do something else. I have my backup plan. I have it all planned out. You see, I have these 2 places. My little condo in Minneapolis is all handicap accessible. My husband was there, so I know I can stay there for a long time. And I also a porcelain painter. I like to paint porcelain. You can do that with very little energy. So if I get to the point where I can't speak anymore, my kids are all grown up. They don't need me anymore. They're going to go to college at some point or get out of the house at some point. They're not going to need their Nana around so much anymore. When those things happen, I'm prepared for the next phase, which is I'll sit in my little room and I'll paint porcelain and I'll be perfectly happy. So I think looking at this, so forget about retirement. You know, you can change what you do, but think about it as a season. Go for what you love to do, and but also plan that you're gonna, you know, there's gonna come a time when your body doesn't work like it does now, and you have to adjust and do whatever you can at that time. And like I said, being old now, if I 20 years ago I couldn't do what I'm doing now because the technology wasn't available for me to call an Uber if I needed or find my way around the world. But it's available now. There's so many things you can do. So just keep going. Do what you love. Find out what you love to do. Find out where you can be useful and just keep going. It is so much fun, I have to say.
I have to thank you, Kim. We're about to wrap up this conversation, but I really have to thank you because there's a real energy in you where I'm like, it's like keep going, go for it, like go for the joy, find the goal, like let's get you out of the pit, and like let's help you while you're in it and help you navigate out, and then once you're out, like just know that there like we can keep going, like we can keep reinventing, you can rebuild. Like I'm hearing all these things compounding upon itself there, and I really do believe I thank you for the work that you do. I'm sorry for the journey in life that you had to go through to go do it. And I am grateful that you've chosen to keep going for it yourself. That you haven't held yourself back in it, and that you keep creating a life and a mission and a legacy and an impact that continues to have ripple effects. So I appreciate you, Kim. For any outlier that's listening right now that wants to go deeper down the journey with you, either in terms of like that wants to go deeper down the journey with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way, just go to my website, drkimberlyharms.com, and you can contact me there. There's a contact form you can fill out, and I'd be happy to talk to anybody who has an interest in any of the things I've talked about.
Thank you so much there, Kim. We end up each conversation with one last question, which is we've had a lot and we've shared a lot for outliers in order to see like into your perspectives and how you go about doing things and the different messages you had for them. My question for you is every time I have a conversation, my threshold is like it should be a life changing conversation, at least the possibility of it being there. And so, as we end up for today, would you mind sharing with us an insight that you got that for yourself, and something that you are taking away from this conversation here? And if nothing came up, that's totally fine. We've had a good, honest, open conversation. That's good. But like, if something comes up, I would love to hear.
Well, I love your description of the outliers because I think that I do tend to move forward. I luckily have a wonderful group of friends that understand me and give me lots of grace as I just
Yeah.
kind of keep going and I go from one thing to the other, and they kind of keep up with me. And so it's nice to know there's other outliers out there that do the same thing, and to give them hope to give them just a good little cheering section here. Let them know that they can do it, and to keep going as an outlier till you can't go any longer. Just keep on going. But yes, thank you. It's good to know that they're out there. There's outliers out there like me.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Like it came out like you talked about loneliness. You talked about like various components of this stuff here. This is part of why we built the Outliers Edge podcast and the live stream and the world that we have here. Like we're consistently saying like you're not alone. And I've found that part of my joy is bringing people together and then saying like how do we continue to grow when the expectation is like if some like I'm thinking about what you're saying, like the expectation might be like if someone ends up in the pit, they're like makes sense, I would totally be in the pit myself, right? And like the status quo pulls us to less than what we know we can show up in. And so outliers, if you're finding yourself in this place here, one, if you're really in the pit, like please go to drkimberlyharms.com, and like Kim just has the tools and the skills to just help you move forward with that. And if you're looking for a group of people that like you can continue to grow alongside with, you can go to outliersedge.com/guild or go to school.com/outlier. That's our Outliers Edge world. We have a free membership. Come join us in it, and we're going to keep playing our game as well. All right. Kim, with all of this being said, thank you so much for being who you are. Thank you for bringing your experience to the table. And outliers, until the next time we talk, journey on and be you on purpose. Take care.